So welcome back to the Desert Well. This was different. We're done now. So we're actually recording this after we've recorded as like a means of introduction. But we're here again around the well. We're going to do something different too when we actually talk. Which again, I already feel like I'm speaking differently. My voice sounds different, doesn't it?
No.
Oh, it feels like it does. So we recorded, and I told Derek, you'll hear it, to not look at the camera. And so
I proceeded to look at the cameras right afterwards.
So we sat like this and talked to each other, and it's different than what you're used to with us looking right at the cameras and things like that. So we're hoping, at least I am, that would create more of a conversational feel between us that way, and then you're kind of just along for the ride. But if you hate it and thought it was awful, let us know. But anyway, we're excited for this conversation.
We had fun. Yeah, it was
great.
a good conversation.
Sorry, I'm talking the whole time. What do you want to say? Tell them about the conversation.
Take a listen. It's good. Come be a part of the conversation too.
Cool. So, the article this week, urgency is not faithfulness. I was somewhat, as I always sort of am, I'm just kind of looking for things that might be helpful or beneficial. And so I go to a few places for those. I go to Lutheran Witness, which usually has some good articles. I'll go to, this one is from Christianity Today, which has a lot of good articles on it as well.
I was wondering where I found it.
Yep. So I found this one on Christianity Today. And it was like a good article just in general, but then at one point it made a reference to Holy Week, when this will come out, that I felt was like, oh, this is great. And so it ties into Holy Week. This will come out on Good Friday. And so it ties into Holy Week in a way that I think is beautiful and is awesome in that way. So, I don't know. Should we just go ahead and start reading?
Do you want to read the whole thing, or are we just going to reference it as we go?
Well, I would like to sort of do a running commentary on this one. Because I see some highlights on yours. Yeah.
It's all highlighted. No, it's not all highlighted.
We should play the what did you highlight game and figure out if we highlighted the same things or what we found interesting. So we'll see. But I think we should just go through it, and we'll read it as is, and then we are, what's the word? Are we co-host? So, you can interrupt and say, hey, I found this interesting.
Sure.
What do you think about that as we go? So, let's go ahead and start.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Obviously, we'll put the link wherever it needs to be, somewhere for people to find, if they want to follow along. A statement dropped on a Tuesday. This is by Thomas Anderson. I don't know who that is. I probably should have looked that up.
It's on the bottom. He is the pastor of disciple making at Grace Community.
Grace Community something? Grace Community somewhere? Something.
No idea.
I liked what Thomas wrote, so I figured it would be beneficial for us. A statement dropped on a Tuesday. I don't remember which Tuesday. There may have been Tuesdays like it. Something breaks into the news, a shooting, a Supreme Court ruling, a pastor's fall. Within the hours, the internet is fully awake. Soon we see statements appear, positions are declared, silences are cataloged, lines are drawn. By Wednesday morning, the sorting has already happened, with the righteous on one side and the complicit on the other. By the following week, the algorithm has moved on to something new, leaving behind the usual debris, estranged friendships, flattened nuance, and the aftertaste of having just performed something that looked but did not feel like faithfulness.
Stop there.
Okay.
So I just want to point something out. Jared knows this, but other people probably don't. But I do watch a lot of YouTube videos, and one of the YouTube videos that I watched actually yesterday was about that very thing.
Which one?
Or
what thing?
About just what we just read, that we are so quick to declare something with one side being the righteous side, the other complicit, and how time and time again that is not always the case.
Sure.
And so it was, I don't remember the name of it was a podcast, but I don't remember the name of it. But there were two guys talking back and forth, and one of the guys did a truth-telling video on a specific event that happened in the news a couple years back. and how that video, like that he and his crew made, was used in court to prove the media wrong, and it was one of those cases where the media had to pay out because they were wrong about it. So it's kind of interesting that I just watched that yesterday, and then I read through this today, and I was like, oh, sure.
We're talking about it.
We are talking about it.
And I think what I liked about this part is the idea of faithfulness, right? And so as Christians, like that's our goal, is to be faithful to Scripture, faithful to Jesus. And so I think that's maybe the important part here is we're going to look at all of this through the lens of faithfulness. Right? Our goal is not to please a certain person other than Jesus Christ himself. And it's going to dive into how we get to that and the ways in which quickly forming opinions and or doing these things does not, I mean, it's in the title, right? We already said it. Urgency is not faithfulness. Right? It's not clickbaity. It's just stating a fact. So, well, I guess he's going to argue it anyway. All right, let's keep going. We'll do like a page at a time. How's that sound? And then you can read.
Sure.
Most of us has probably seen this happen a million times. As a pastor, I've seen it up close and personal. I've sat in rooms where church staff wrestled over whether we needed to post a statement within 48 hours of national controversies or tragedies. We didn't lack conviction, but we knew whatever we said would be examined for what it did not say. And I think that's a really powerful line too. That it's in the world of the internet today, it's very hard to say anything because anything you say is so closely dissected to read between the lines, to try and understand what you're really saying. It's almost like people don't read the words on the page and they just try and read everything you didn't write, which is somewhat ironic. So anyway, let's keep going. One then begins to realize the clock is not merely measuring time, it is measuring suspicion. I've watched thoughtful, Bible-reading, Spirit-seeking Christians reduce the work of discernment to the speed of a news cycle. I've done it myself. I've mistaken urgency for obedience, letting the clock tell me when to speak and the crowd tell me what to say. But one day, I opened my Bible to Exodus 34 and met a God whose behavior, by his own description, is slow.
Did you highlight anything on that page?
I did the mistaken urgency for obedience. I mean, as a pastor, like I feel this pressure a lot. You know, it's I don't know if we'll talk about it necessarily today, but I just talked through with the lay ministers about how to know when to speak and when not to speak. And so often, and mostly, which is somewhat ironic, but mostly around like urgent cultural news stuff.
Yeah, and we've talked about that before too, right? And I would say we've even had conversations about should we say anything, should we not say anything?
Right.
So we've been in situations like this too. But I also had that whole basically last paragraph highlighted because I've also done it, right? I've mistaken urgency for obedience. And listening to the loud noises, the loudest voices, is not always the wisest or most discerning thing to do.
Right. The squeaky wheel gets the oil, as they say. All right, take it away.
All right, imagine the scene for a moment. Moses has already seen plagues swallow an empire. He watched the sea divide and close again. He has climbed a mountain wrapped in cloud and thunder, and still he asks for more. Show me your glory. I expect him to say it something like that, right?
No, it's more like the song. Show me your glory.
I don't know that song. Culture reference.
It's a contemporary Christian song. I don't know what. It's the one that do you remember the sermon I preached? I don't know, maybe a month or so ago with the Babylon Bee news story. Worship leader asked God to show his glory, and the entire church is wiped out because he showed his glory. Anyway, keep going.
I do remember the sermon.
Or at least I remember the image, but nothing else. So it goes to show how much I'm.
It is one of the most audacious prayers in Scripture, and what happens next is not what we might expect. There was no storm, no earthquake, no cosmic display meant to overwhelm the senses. God answered with a description. He passed before Moses and declared his name. The Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. If you read the Bible long enough, you notice something. Israel returns to this moment again and again. The line echoes through the Psalms, through Jonah and Joel and Nahum and Nehemiah. Whenever the people need to remember who God is, they return here. And one of the first things God says about himself is that he is slow to anger. Now I'm going to stop here because when I was reading through this earlier today, I was like, of course I'm going to get this part.
But aren't you like the Hebrew? You want to learn Hebrew?
Yeah, I
so
did
pronunciation.
for a while.
So it's interesting. The transliteration of this one, I stared at for a while because I went and looked this up like in the Hebrew Bible to like see what the actual spelling was, and I was like, I don't like. I want to say it, Erica, like or Ereka, is how I would say that. Ereka.
See, I read it as
Aphayim is how I would say that. Not
Apayim?
no, Aphayim. Yeah, sorry, Aphayim, right? Ereka, because it's not, there's no further sound, it's kind of ends. Like, I don't know what this H is here.
I think it's the...
Okay, well, see, that's like the sound I never could, like a comet, I think is the kamutz or something like that. Like, I can never, it's the like guttural sort of sound, which sounds really good, I'm sure, on this microphone. But, yeah, Erica, Aphayim, or however you want to say it.
So, yeah, I would say Erek, or Arach, Apayim.
That was probably better than anything I did.
I did study Hebrew for 2 years. Duolingo, though. All right, anyways, the Hebrew phrase is Rech Apayim, which literally means long nostrils. And yeah, if you know how to pronounce this, tell us how. The image is earthly and human. The God of Abraham introduces himself as someone who draws a long breath before responding and inhales slowly when others would flare with anger. I want to stop there.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 things that I had thought about when I was reading through this. One of the other podcasts that I listened to was talking about, so it was a 1517 podcast of Thinking Fellows, and I think I've told you about that one before. It was one that was released this week, I believe, and it was talking about did Jesus really claim to be God? And one of the phrases that they talked about today was how when the Gospels talk about Jesus coming and going, oftentimes they would say that he passed before or he passed by, and then whatever. And that the writing and phrasing of that is also echoing the writing and phrasing of what God
like a real
does.
subtle claim on Jesus' divinity.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
At least that's how I interpret it. So the guys at 1517 with the Thinking Fellows, if I'm wrong in that, if you ever get this, tell me. And then the other thing that I had underlined there is the God of Abraham introduces himself as someone who draws a long breath before responding and hails slowly when others would flare with anger. That was just a pretty powerful statement and a way to look at how God describes himself and introduces himself. Again, think about the days of creation. I think it talks about this later, the 6 days of creation. Well, that seems fairly quick, 6 days. But God is, I would say, like slow and methodical.
Mm-hmm. Deliberate.
Deliberate, that's a good word. So yeah, that was powerful. Anything to add?
Nope.
Okay. Scholar Paul R. House wrote that this description of God can serve as an interpretive lens for the entire Old Testament story. Once you see it, it's easier to notice the pattern everywhere. The centuries between the promise of the Messiah and the coming of Christ are not empty space. They are the long patience of a God who was forming a people and building a lineage that would produce his anointed one instead of merely putting out a fire. Caught between this promise and its fulfillment, Habakkuk cried out, "How long, O Lord?" And God answered with something that almost sounds like a contradiction. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. The justification of God, John Piper noted, or the justification of God, sorry, that's the title. John Piper noted that God's patience is not weakness but power. The one that could end the story at any moment, but chooses not to. And that choice reveals something about who God is. I want to pause there before we continue.
Yeah.
Other things that I highlighted here, they are the long patience of God, of a God who was forming a people and building a lineage that would produce his anointed one instead of merely putting out a fire. I've often wondered that, right?
Why it took so long?
Well, not just that, but God is able to do that. He can do whatever, right? He could have chosen he could have chosen to redeem us or to not redeem us in a different way.
Sure.
But he specifically chose this way, and then he specifically chose that point in time for that very reason.
Right. It's maybe this is a diversion, but not a Chronos Kairos time. You've heard of this difference?
I have, but enlighten me again.
Well, I was going to ask you to enlighten me. What have you heard about it? I guess is the question.
Did we talk about this at one point on
I
the
don't
podcast?
Beats me.
I mean, Chronos is time, right?
It's like one of the things that I've realized in my new role is that I forget a lot more things.
Uh-huh.
And it's a struggle because I'm not a forgetting person. But
There's
yes,
only so much hard drive memory space up here.
Chronos is time. Like it is 3:59 on Friday, March 27th that we're recording this right now. Kairos is like the divinely inspired moment sort of thing. And so some people talk about Kairos moments.
Sure.
Right? Like God ordained moments, which is somewhat of a oxymoron because all of time is ordained by God. So everything is a Chronos time because it's all God's. But this reminds me of that. Like God is just waiting for the right time.
So yeah, I thought I highlighted that and I thought about that. Like God chose to wait, if we're talking young earth theory here, right? Like looking at the world is from what the Bible spells out, 6,000 years. Well, it's been 2,026 years since, what is AD? Ados Domini, the year of our Lord?
Sure. After the death of Jesus.
Sure. So 30 AD, somewhere in there,
That
right?
probably isn't the right thing to say.
AD, yeah, we always think after death. It's not that, though.
I know.
It's the year of our Lord. But it's like, so it's been 2,000 years roughly since Jesus died, and roughly 4,000 years before that. And we don't know exactly how many years before that. But so it took 4,000 years for Jesus to come to redeem us, and now it's been 2,000 years since. So I just look at that as like 4,000 years. That's a long time. And then 2,000 years, Jesus said, "I'm coming back soon." If you watch The Chosen, they really lean into that. What does that soon mean? So our soon is not always God's soon.
So before we flip the page,
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's in the paragraph, so I don't know if we should just read that part you started. That Piper, he's a Reformed theologian, right? Doesn't mean that he's bad. We might not agree with him on everything, and that's okay. Doesn't mean he doesn't have things though to offer to us that are valuable. And this is a very valuable statement, I think, that God's patience is not weakness but power. And for that reason, or at least the passage that comes to mind to me is Paul's admonition to not be tossed by the waves. Right? By the waves and the winds of doctrine, the cunning of human something is how he talks about it. And I mean, I know in my life that it's so easy to get whooshed up is maybe the word you would use, like caught up, whether it's the trials of the day or the things in your life even, that it's so easy to get just kind of sucked up into something that you lose objectivity, you lose perspective, you lose everything. And is he incapable of being sucked up into something like that? Maybe we would say it that way, but maybe we would just, because I mean, he gets sucked up into people that he loves, right? I mean, that's why he goes in Exodus to save his people, because it says he heard their cry. Now, he didn't do it the first day they were enslaved, right? So it's not an instant, like, we're not pulling God around in that way.
400 years or whatever.
Right, but it still is, he's still able to be drawn into something. And I just think that's a very powerful image.
Well, and I think when you think about God's patience too, again, you said it before, it's deliberate. there's a reason that he is patient and slow in specific ways.
Right.
And I think that plays out over, and it's weird that I'm saying this, but over time you realize that the answer,
Everybody's symbol clash.
the answer that we were looking for was not given at the time that we wanted it to be given. But then you realize later why.
Right.
Not always, but
Sometimes.
sometimes.
Sometimes. All right, so let's keep going. I'm going to read that line again just to kind of bring us back into the paragraph, if I can find it. In The Justification of God, that's the title, John Piper noted that God's patience is not weakness but power. The one who could end the story at any moment chooses not to, and that choice reveals something about who God is. The Japanese theologian, I'm going to butcher this, Koisuke Koyama? Is that how you would say it? Koisuke Koyama. Spent years sitting with that same realization and arrived at a conclusion I find disarming. Love has its speed, he wrote, quoting again, it is a spiritual speed. It is a different kind of speed from the technological speed to which we are accustomed to. It goes on at 3 miles an hour. I'm going to keep going, but I really want to,
Just read the next sentence.
It's probably like my favorite part of the whole entire
Just read the
article.
next sentence.
3 miles.
2 sentences.
Yeah. 3 miles an hour is the pace of a human being walking down a road. And as a hiker, 3 miles an hour was booking. If you're carrying 40 pounds on your back, 3 miles an hour is pretty good. Like that was like our day hiking with a slack pack sort of thing, which is like only what you need sort of thing. Anyway, Nazareth to Capernaum is roughly 26 miles. At that pace, it takes a bit more than a full day to make the trek. Oh yeah, I'm going to read. Should I read this whole paragraph? Yeah, let's read the whole thing.
Sure.
Jesus has walked that path, but he was rarely in a hurry in all his journeys. He stopped for interruptions. People reached out and touched his cloak. A stranger called his name from the roadside and he healed. Koyama called this the 3 mile an hour God. I just
pause right there.
That is so good.
Yeah. So, one, again, going back to my time in Israel, there are, so when you go to Capernaum, you can look to the west. You look to the west, and you can see the mountain ranges that separates Capernaum, and it's right on the Sea of Galilee, right? And so the pathway would go from Capernaum along the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee, through Magdala,
Okay.
which is on like the northwest side of the Sea of Galilee, and then it goes through the valley between two like plateaus or mountaintops, and you can clearly see the pathway and the valley where the path goes, and so
like from a distance.
Oh yeah. And so I'm trying to think if the road from Nazareth to Capernaum, if it followed that same pathway or not. But when I was reading this, I could picture it and just be like Jesus walking down the road, whether the 12 disciples were with him coming from, Nazareth to Capernaum or back and forth, whatever. But it was very visual for me because of what I have seen over there too. But 26 miles, 3 hours, a little more than a full workday. It's about right.
Really? Okay. And that's, it's somewhat interesting. Like, again, we would hike, and at least on the Appalachian Trail, if you got up early enough, even with your pack on, you could do 20-plus mile days pretty easily. It'd take all day. And, with lunch breaks, things like that, you'd be hiking.
Yeah, and they probably traveled fairly light.
Right. They weren't carrying necessarily as many
Tents
things. Yeah. Water filtration filters and prepackaged tuna. So I love the quote of love has its speed, a spiritual speed. It's a different kind of speed from the technological speed we're used to. And I mean, so we haven't really talked about AI here yet, but if you're using like an AI model in a chat form, there's like their fast models, which is usually pretty quick. Like you type in something and it does it and it's right there. But you can also do these things called thinking. I'm assuming you use thinking modes. Like, so if you
Gemini or ChatGPT.
yeah, so like
whatever,
on
yeah.
ChatGPT or on Gemini, some of them call them extended thinking mode, and so like on
So where it doesn't use as much computing power.
no, it uses more, because what it
Oh,
does
it's
is
deeper search.
yeah, like it stops and it actually thinks. It like takes your prompt and then it analyzes the prompt before it kicks back its response. And even in those moments, you know, some of them you do these and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have used thinking mode because I'm not willing to wait for this thing to kick back the answer. Like I want my answer now. Like come on, this is not. I just ask you, like one of our drawers, the front end came off. I haven't had a chance to tell you this. Emily just pulled it and the front of it just ripped right off. Like the particle board just broke, the screw broke out, and so like she had this drawer in her hand, and so I took a picture of it and said, "How do I fix this, Gemini? Like, what do I do? Because I'm not about to buy a brand new drawer." And I used thinking mode, and I was like, "Oh come on, this is not that hard. Like, just tell me what I need to do." And it was like a frustrating thing because I'm used to the speed of these things that are just wild. I mean, you think too back to like computers. I mean, I wasn't around for this, but like my grandparents have told me, and I've heard about you had to fill out little punch cards with things and then like you go and it would take a really long time just to get like a really simple answer. And nowadays, you know, we can do a lot
we're
of
spoiled.
things.
Well, and you were just talking the other day about the giga internet.
Yeah, that's right. So we're switching to quantum fiber. We'll see how it works. It's going to be $5 less a month, but I'm going to get a gigabit up and down, which is crazy. I told Emily, you don't even understand how awesome this is going to be. It's going to be so fast. She's like, okay, whatever,
And
dude.
I'm over here like I'll keep my my T-Mobile internet.
And so I think that this is an interesting framing for this, because when we think about love, I mean, maybe you would have to tell a high schooler, hey, love takes time. You know, I love them, they're my soulmate, you know, whatever. But in adulthood, I don't know how much we think about the speed of love, and especially in the context of faithfulness and urgency. Love is something that, you know, I have to respond like right now. Like I gotta give an answer right now. Well, look at Jesus. I mean, he walked, and in Holy Week, right? I said this in midweek service this past week that we do Holy Week to slow us down, because I mean we're gathering for 3-4 days. If you come to all of them,
Thursday, Friday, Saturday,
right.
Sunday.
I mean, and if you count Sunday, you could count it an extra day, and you know, like in an 8-day week, you could count it as like we're going to gather that many more times. But like, it's a slow down walk to go through Jesus' journey to the cross, so that we don't miss it. And so when especially we think about faithfulness, we think about love, faster is not always better, right? And that he's going to get there, but this language of slow, I mean, well, yeah, we'll talk about a little bit about the sort of trends. I want to talk about trends versus like singular instances too, that responding to things, whether it's parenting, things in culture, things in church culture, teams, I mean, work, right? I mean, we lead a bunch of people. The slowness, whether we're running around like whack-a-mole, you know, and just pounding down every single problem. Hey, you misstepped once, and I'm going to smack you over the head. Or, you know, showing grace and allowing for those sort of things. So I just, again, love has
Before
its
we move
speed.
on,
So good.
Do you ever think about, and again, this goes back to the thing about Chronos or Kairos, what you were just talking about. Do you ever think about what it would look like if Jesus had come today?
He would totally be an iPhone user. What do you mean?
Just about how quickly news would spread and how quickly we might have just dismissed him.
I mean, you know, there's been people who have claimed to be Jesus, right?
No, I don't.
Yeah, go look them up on YouTube. There are people that have claimed to be Jesus that have come back.
or like there's
I'm
another
the
one that's
Messiah.
like,
I am here.
there's a I'm not going to get into that one. But
Sure.
have you seen seen the AI videos where Jesus is like filming TikTok videos or whatever of himself, like, hey, I'm here with so and so, and like documenting? And now, would Jesus have done that? Don't know.
Sure.
But I often think about that. But I also know that he didn't come now, so it's a fun to worry about.
It's a fun question.
Yeah.
I sometimes wonder, like, age of disillusionment sort of thing. Like, if people would actually listen, things like that. Like, if it would, like, I think we assume it would be a big thing. And I really wonder if people would just be really dismissive and, like,
I think so, because it would be more like, oh, look at this guy. He's
right. What a lunatic.
he thinks he can save us.
He thinks he's God. I mean, crazy. All right, let's keep going. Otherwise, we're going to be talking for 2 hours. Our camera can only last for 100 minutes, so we have to be done in an hour and 40 minutes. Oh, sorry, it's my turn. Here we go.
Yeah.
My brain was on Friday afternoon mode. The phrasing was meant as a critique of a world drunk on technological speed. Ooh, what a phrase. But it lands just as sharply on the church. As I've noted, we have built an ecclesiastical culture, just like a church culture is what that kind of means, that assumes faster is more faithful and the first to speak wins. Yet the God who spoke the universe into being chose to arrive as a baby in an occupied village and spent 30 years in obscurity before speaking a single public word. Which, again, is crazy.
Have you ever thought about that, too?
Mm-hmm. Like, why 30?
I mean...
Or why...
We can get into the whole numbers of the Bible and stuff, right? But 30 years. What happened before that? I mean, we know a little bit, right? Jesus at the temple when he was 12 or whatever.
Neil talked about some of the... I think he talked briefly about some of the Gnostic gospel stuff.
Yeah, but how much of that can, like...
Yeah, I mean, we don't believe they're true.
Right. So, but yeah, you think about it, 30 years, and not only that, but his mother had to pull him out and be like, do this miracle, start your ministry, why not now?
Right.
Right.
And so we might disagree with him that he didn't speak because wasn't he teaching in the temple?
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's somewhat wrong here. But
we don't know what Jesus was talking about.
We don't know what he said. Right.
It says that he was teaching and whatever, or talking to the elders.
Right. And they were amazed at his teaching as a young boy.
But
does that count as a public word?
Right?
I don't know.
So, anyways.
All right. There is a word for this kind of slowness buried in the middle of Galatians 5. When Paul lists the fruit of the Spirit, the word he uses for patience is makrothumia, is how I would say that. I looked that up again, too. This was fun. I've dived into Greek and Hebrew. I'm glad that you did. I usually try and read every time, just to be clear, that I do try and read the original language when I'm preaching on things. But anyway, it's a compound word that means something like long-tempered, the capacity to take a long time before a flame appears. And so as I was looking up this word in the dictionary, it gave the definition of the state of being able to bear up under provocation, or provocation, I think is probably how you're supposed to say that, which is an interesting way to say not get angry when someone is trying to provoke you. Paul could have chosen a different word. Greek had hupomone or upomone, which means endurance under hardship. And so this word is the word that Hebrews 12 uses. That therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us run with endurance the race that's set before us. And so this word, right, is more about, well, that means enduring through hard things. But he chose the word that describes patience with people. Patience is a discipline. It should not be mistaken for passivity, cowardice, or the absence of conviction. It is simply the refusal to let the person who provokes determine the speed of the response. Said another way, it is the decision to burn at the right moment, in the right way, for the right reason. The hot take rewards immediacy and treats reaction as courage. But macrothumia waits.
What did you have underlined?
So I underlined it is simply the refusal to let the person who provokes determine the speed of the response. right? Because
And I had the other side of that.
really,
Yep.
burn at the right
It is
moment.
the decision to burn at the right moment in the right way for the right reason. And I had patience as a discipline. That was more for like a note for myself too, right?
And this is where I wrote the trends versus singular moments. That there is a distinction, or at least I remember going to some sort of parenting something long before Emily and I were even married. That's how long I've been worried about being a bad dad. Or I should say a good dad, right? That's the voice of guilt and shame. And they said something like, I never concern myself with singular instances, only with trends. And if you think about it, you play that out, both in your home, you could also play it out in your relationships, play it out in church, in the world even, you're going to respond differently if you're just looking at trends.
Sure.
Because for something to become a trend,
there has to be multiple occasions for it to happen. Yep.
Right, and it has to happen over time. And so thinking about, responding when to say and not allowing then, the person who, you must speak right now, you must say something. It's one of those, and usually, at least in my life, it's the voice inside my head. I don't have too many people pounding on my door demanding that I say something about every single thing they see in the news every week. It's usually just my own internal voice that, hey, are people wondering?
Or me coming over, hey, do you think we should?
Sure. And so it's not necessarily like I have people who are provoking me.
Sure.
But, you think about certain things that people might want or desire or say, hey, you have to say something. And even in those moments, what does patience look like? How do you find waiting? And so, it was, we did a study in Pennsylvania, inappropriately timed, but the heart was good. So we read a book called Holy Citizens.
I think you talked about that before.
Right, by Joel Bierman, about what does it mean to be a citizen of a country and a Christian at the same time. What does that balance look like? And we did this right leading up to the election in not last one, but the one before. It would have been 2020. 2020? Mm-hmm. Well, no.
Or 2022.
No, yeah, something like that. And so, it's a crazy heated time in Butler County that is extremely red. It was very clearly what we should be telling them. People were pretty clear about that. And yet we read this book that really pushed people to a deeper place of faith, is what I would say.
Right.
And yet it was a very hard thing because in some ways we were provoking people and they were being provoked by us. But nevertheless, not responding to that. But we wanted to teach, wanted them to learn, wanted them to know what the Bible says. And so maybe just wrong time, wrong place. But I still loved it. It was fun. All right, let's keep going.
All right, in Galatians, Paul does not describe this type of slowness as a personality trait. It is a fruit, which means it grows slowly and quietly over time. The Holy Spirit produces patience the way roots spread through soil, and it is supposed to flow through us towards a society that desperately needs it. The need, however, isn't new. Most of us know about the story of the woman who was caught in adultery and dragged before Jesus, from John chapter 8. The crowd had gathered, the religious leaders wanted a verdict from Jesus, and they wanted it quickly. The urgency was manufactured, designed to force a quick answer under pressure. Condemn the woman and appear righteous, or show mercy and appear soft on sin. But Jesus bent down and wrote in the dirt. The gospel writer never tells us what he wrote. Commentators have wondered for centuries, but the silence may be the point. When Jesus finally spoke, the words were simple. Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone. Then the accusers left, first the oldest, followed by the rest. The woman remained standing with the one person who had the authority to condemn her, and he did not. I'm going to stop right there. I always think about that. When Jesus says, let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw the stone. He's the only one that could have.
That's right. Because then what he says is, where is the people who condemn you? Neither do I. Go and sin no more.
Right.
But so the fun part, I think, this is right, and if I'm speaking out of air here, I'll feel very foolish, that this is one of these texts that is in brackets usually in most people's Bibles, because we don't know, some of the manuscripts don't have it. And sort of like hey, this sounds like Jesus. It sounds like things that he would do, but might not have actually been what he did. So anyway, just a very interesting side note. We won't talk about manuscript tradition and what all that means, but keep going.
Although I do like getting into that stuff too. That's fun. Patience here looks like the most powerful presence in the room, refusing to let the crowd set the terms. Centuries later, family therapist Edwin Friedman would give language to dynamics like this. After studying families, congregations, and organizations, Friedman observed that anxiety spreads through environments quickly, and once it does, the group orients around the most reactive voices. I want to stop there too. Because first, I also had the first sentence there underlined. Patience looks like the most powerful presence in the room, refusing to let the crowd set the terms. And this last sentence, where it's talking about the study, Friedman observed that anxiety spreads through environments quickly, and once it does, the group orients around the most reactive voices. And I think that's true of absolutely every aspect of our, I would say, relationships, communities, whether that be the family, the congregation, the school, the teachers, the staff, right? It's very quick, and we hear about a lot of the anxiety of people because it does travel quickly and it gets to us, and then everyone's like, what are we going to do? Or what do you think about this? And so that's, I had that highlighted because it's very evident, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if this is like coming from family system theory stuff, but that's like what I wrote was like, this is like family system sort of language, whether it's a voters meeting, it's a staff meeting, the voice of fear in a room is not just loud, it's powerful.
Yeah. And little side note, applicable here though. In coaching football, we always talk about that with the kids too. Fear and doubt.
Sure.
It takes just a little bit of fear, a little bit of doubt, and on both sides. So if we're down, it takes a little bit of fear, a little bit of doubt to the other team, the opposing team, to completely switch the ball game. And then if we're ahead, a little bit of fear, a little bit of doubt. Don't let it creep in, because that spreads very quickly amongst people.
Right.
And we've seen that happen, and on both sides. It's fun on both sides.
Especially with emotionally volatile teenagers.
Yes. So, yeah, just applicable there. All right, Friedman's prescription for this problem was not withdrawal, but what he called a non-anxious and sometimes challenging presence. Essentially, what the group needed was someone who was connected to them, but refused to be governed by the volatility around them.
All right, stop there. So I wrote the word, I said the words, this is leadership. I wrote leadership next to it. Like, I don't know if this was from the Peter Stanke book that we read or talked about, or I swear I've heard this before, that what is leadership? It's a non-anxious and sometimes challenging presence. Because what churches, what staffs need is not someone to, not engage with this stuff. They don't need us to tell them their emotions are wrong, even if they necessarily are, which we might
It's to
argue.
sit and to listen, and
Right.
then to
Challenge.
and to oftentimes they're looking for a solution, but you don't have to have a solution right then and there, right?
And it's in some ways, this is the disarming thing, right? Anxiety can be disarmed by someone who is not anxious, who is not caught up into whatever that thing is. It's a very hard thing to do. At least for me it is. Maybe it's not for you. But when emotions are very high or when things are very anxious, it's very hard to not get sucked up into it. And
Yeah, I would say with some things, yes.
sure.
With other things, maybe. I don't know. I'm typically not an anxious person, just in general. It's not saying I don't have stress or anxiety. But like I was talking to one of the teachers today, and we had been working on something, and something came up, and so our plans changed a little bit. And she was like, "What do you want to do?" And it's like, "Okay, well, let's think through this. Let's talk through the process. What happens if we wait until next week to do this?" in the next week or 2 weeks from now? What does that look like? Right? And so it's listening, calming nerves, and then just, working through it. So, go ahead.
And isn't that what Jesus does, right? I mean, the Pharisees come to him all the time and are trying to, like, get him. Could have been pretty easy to, like, get caught up into that. I mean, he does, sure, he flips tables. He does call them pretty mean things. But it all still seems very deliberate.
Oh, absolutely. But I think about that all the time, though, too. And when I say all the time, I do think about a lot of these things all
Derek
the time.
thinks about everything all the time. He basically is just one big thinking thing.
Oh, my mind is like a hamster wheel, just running all the time. And it's partly why I don't sleep very much. But anyways, I think about that Jesus approaching the Pharisees and talking to them and calling them out on things. And I'm sure that he did it calmly multiple times. And just was like, who do you think you are? Right? But then I love seeing the other side of it too. So Beck and I, we do enjoy watching The Chosen just because it brings some things to life. Not saying that it's not scripture.
Meant to be scripture.
Correct.
Doesn't mean it's bad.
But again, it gives light to how things may have happened and the personality behind things. And in that particular event where Jesus is actually like going toe to toe with the Pharisees, and he's calling them a brood of vipers and like, who are you to say?
I feel like I know what scene you're talking about.
Yeah, it was in the last season, I think.
Okay.
Towards the end.
Yeah. Because then they try and stone him, right? At the end of that one.
It might have been that might have taken place before the study. Yeah. But it's just one of those instances. Is like, Jesus was ready to go. He was. Anyways.
Don't mess with the Son of God. Right?
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going.
Okay, where are we at? Top here?
Yeah, I think this is our last page.
Yep.
So when we approach the Gospels with that language in mind, certain scenes begin to look different. And this is talking about the sort of calmness, presence, not anxious presence, but challenge. Jesus asleep in the boat while his disciples panicked. Right? He was not anxious, challenged them. He said to them, "What, you of little faith? Why don't you believe?" Jesus silent before Pilate while the crowd shouted, "Don't you know I have the authority to release you or to kill you?" And of course, Jesus writing in the dirt while the Pharisees demanded a verdict. In each moment, he was fully present but not controlled by the anxiety around him. Isaiah named the posture underneath it all. "In quietness and trust is your strength." But our lives are not only personal, they are also cultural. In his book, The Prophetic Imagination, theologian Walter Brueggemann, I've read a couple of his books, warned that our consumer culture depreciates memory and ridicules hope. Quoting, "which means everything must be held in the now, either urgently or eternally, seeing the present world as our sole reality."
I want to pause you there.
Sure, go ahead.
If people are watching my reaction as you're reading this, like, culture depreciates memory and ridicules hope. I had that highlighted.
Sure.
Just because I think it's very true. Especially the constant, like, being fed all the trendy things. And I've found, too, that when I get sucked into that, sometimes my memory about things is not as necessarily as good, because, again, there's only so much hard drive space. And then as you get sucked into that, you start to get kind of down this negative rabbit hole of, what's going on in the world. And so you'd see that there's less and less hope in those things that you're watching or consuming. So that's why I had that highlighted.
All right. When the church adopts that pace, it looks like the culture around it. What appears to be courage becomes compliance with the algorithm's demand for speed and with the crowd's demand for a verdict. But a church that reacts at the speed of culture is not prophesying to it, it is echoing it. This paragraph is one that I feel like we don't have the time to dissect enough. It makes a few assumptions, I think, that are kind of large.
One?
No, the one that we just read. So the first being, when the church adopts that pace, it looks like the culture around it. I agree, but I don't think he does enough to like explain why this is a problem. Because so there's a great book, Christ of Culture, Christ and Culture, I feel like is the name, and in it they paint the sort of 5 different perspectives of how people view Christ and culture, and there's basically it goes from as much as Christ is culture or Christ against culture, and everyone operates in usually one of the 5 kind of domains of, well, what is Jesus? Is he against the world, or is he just a part of it? And we would say that he's not either of those things, right? He might be against some things, he might be for some things. He kind of is his own thing. And so there's just a lot here that he doesn't really go into. And so I would say, well, why is that a problem, right? Well, it's a problem because, like the Bible says, we're not supposed to be of the world, even though we're in it. Is that right? We're in the world, but we're not of it. Right? So we're in the world, but we're not like it. He does do well at sort of saying, hey, we can't just be the algorithms demand, et cetera, et cetera. But then again, like a church that reacts to the speed of culture is not prophesying to it. Well, what do you mean? Like, even to say our job is to prophesy to culture is a pretty big assumption, right? Or a pretty big, this is the church's job. And there are ways in which we need to speak, right? That's kind of what we're talking about here is, well, is there a time to speak, or what's the time to speak? How do we know when to speak? But by and large, it's still a good paragraph. I just was like, whoa, buddy. He's jumping to his conclusion. And so he...
Right, and yeah, when I read that, I was like, these things are true, but at the same time, we also need to be speaking to
right
cultural things. So that's kind of how I took it.
And maybe that's like where he doesn't go here is the how to know when to speak. He's just purely talking about the timing of your speaking,
right.
Which we could do
about,
a whole nother episode on what to speak about, when to speak
not
about
urgent it. About things.
Right. Okay, let's keep going. The French philosopher Simone Weil, I think is how you say that. It's not whale, I'll tell you that much. Once wrote that the rarest and purest form of generosity is attention. To pay attention is to allow a question to remain open long enough for truth to arrive. Discipleship works the same way. Christians who are patient and can hold tension without collapsing it into tribal reflex are not made overnight. They are formed slowly in communities where disagreement does not immediately fracture relationships. Scripture has always known this. We can see it not only in God's silences, but in the watchman waiting for the morning and the farmer waiting for the harvest. Fruit does not grow on the timeline of the anxious. It grows in the darkness, patiently, at the speed of roots. I think it's a great way to end it, sort of. Like hey, urgency is not faithful, if you summarize it, right? Urgency is not faithful. We don't need to respond right away. In fact, the ability to respond faithfully looks like responding slowly. And yet the ability to respond slowly is slowly produced. I'll see how many more times I can say the word slowly in a sentence.
Count them up. How many times did you say it?
I have no idea.
Yeah, and I taught about plants, right? And I've worked around plants all my life, so this kind of hit home with me too. But the tying in the fruit thing to what he talked about earlier, with the fruit of the Spirit, right? I think it was a good way to tie all of his points together. But I had that one underlined. Christians who are patient can hold tension without collapsing into tribal reflex are not made overnight. Because as churches, as Christians, again, I think it goes back to being sucked into the things of the culture, just as what this said, can bring us very easily into that realm of quick response. Right. It might not even be like an outward response too.
Mm-hmm. An inward response counts as a response.
It's like, well, what do I think about this?
Yeah, you have to form your opinion immediately. Not thinking about it. And, I think someone also said once that the Catholic Church is really great at this in some ways, or they used to be anyway, that they're very slow, innovation doesn't come from the Catholic Church or something like that. is what someone said, something along those lines. And it's sort of what it might appear to other people as being irrelevant, as distant, as not engaged. I think he might say, oh, well, maybe they're just practicing faithfulness and they're just taking a while to form their opinion or be concerned about something that other people are like, the sky is falling and you're not talking about it. Sure. It's like, well, sure, I'm thinking about it. Just haven't came to a conclusion. There's still more to do.
And I would say like our own church body is fairly
Oh yeah, we're
slow
pretty
with
slow.
things too. And I'm not talking like synodical. I'm not trying to get political here or anything,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Simply like with the call process. The call process is deliberately slow. And then there is a time for it, deliberation, right? So there's enough things built into kind of how we operate, even with us going to a convention and everything this summer. A lot of that process is deliberately slow and how it all works and whatnot. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out too. But I do appreciate that we don't always jump to this thing or that thing or whatever's trendy. But yeah.
I don't know how to end this because I still don't think we should look at the cameras, you know? So now that we're done,
What?
we just
What? Sorry, I had to do it.
Derek's like, I've been resisting this whole entire time. All right, well, I think next week we are going to have Leah on, or is next? No, I think next week is. Well, we need to talk about this. Next week is Holy Week, and
We should probably take a break.
but
your sake,
I
too.
really want to record what we're talking about next week because we're talking about our stewardship series. And it would be a really fun, here's why Pastor is going to seek his Jesus crucifixion right after Easter. And yeah, so maybe we'll talk about that next week. Maybe we'll do like an abbreviated something. But that's what's on the docket next week. And then in 2 weeks from now, we will have Leah Abel on in our old format, getting back to look at the screens. It'd be cool if she could be here. I guess if we did it right, we could have waited until she was here, but we're going to have Leah Abel on. If that name means nothing to anyone, it's because she's probably
know who
unknown
she
to
is
you.
soon.
You're right. She's our strategic planner, so she's going to help us facilitate conversation. So we'll have her on. All right. We'll see you.